participate. So if you want to throw in a word for the speaker, raise your hand. I will indicate you with my palm, and then you immediately throw in the word. Okay? So everyone can be on Zhenya's place. And who would like to be the speaker? Andrea. Okay, your topic will be do we need to go to the university or not after school? What is the point of going to the university? And everyone, if you want to give a word to this person, raise your hand, I show you, and you give the word. Start.
From early days, once we start living with Warren, we are all brought into the system of education. We are always being pressured by our parents to go to high school, and eventually it comes to the point when we have to choose university.
Underwear!
And so, when it comes to choosing university, it's usually needs to be you need to choose the right time to do so, and the right outfit, the right mood, and everything else. So you need to start over with making sure that you're not just making decisions by sitting in your underwear in front of the computer and then scrolling all this list of possible universities.
Vegan.
You need to make a great decision. Great decisions are usually made by different people, but statistically speaking, there is kinds of people who actually take care of themselves, and they know something that others don't. They know that eating meat is bad for your health, and thus they are able to process information better. So you probably may ask for your friends who are vegans to give you a great advice on what university to take. PhD. On which university to take. The scariest part is once you've chosen the path, with the help of the vegan people and with all this nice outfit, you've gone through 4 years of this school. You're still doubting whether you need to keep going, and at one point, you finished it. And once you finished it, you need to move on. Unfortunately, many people don't know what to do after the university, and they do a PhD. PhDs are pretty fun, actually. The more you specialize in the field, you start studying different things. Many people actually love animals. And if you happen to be in Australia, PhDs start studying kangaroos. They actually study it in a very funny way. They try to catch them, and they get exhausted, and this is how you get a real PhD.
Thank you. Find yourself a partner quickly. Find yourself a partner. We inspire some people. Everyone got a partner? Come on. Everyone got a partner, yes?
Yes.
Who hasn't got a partner?
Sorry?
Everyone got a partner.
Yes, I will have
So, very quickly, just 1 minute, 1 minute for each person. Your partner, okay, let's do this. Raise your hand number 1 in each pair. Number 1 in each pair. Raise your hand. Number 1 will be now the listener and the prompter, actually. So, number 1, attention. Number 1 gives the topic and throws the word. Number 2 is speaking. When I say, you change. Start.
Civilization is like built. How many of you have ever done a podcast? How many of you have ever wanted to do a podcast? Well, that's more than I thought. Because what the presentation I'm giving today is from the Advanced Visionary Communications Manual, Level 4, says, do a podcast. Now, I assume that YouTube counts, that their Toastmasters headquarters is a little bit behind times. Podcast is so last decade, but anyhow, that's what this is. I did a 4-part series on human evolution, and it's up on YouTube, which I'm calling a podcast. I think you can do that. And this is it. So, change what I have here. This is the presentation. talking about human evolution in the past millennium. My previous three were human evolution up to our split with the chimpanzees, human evolution up to the dawn of agriculture, and human evolution up to the age of Western Europe. So here we are. We have forced our own evolution. Get over here. We have forced our own evolution because the thing that forces evolution more than anything else is changes in the environment. And we change our own environment with incredible speed, and we have continued to do so. Our conceit was that human beings were the end product of evolution. If you look at it, that's as ill-conceived as the notion that Galileo debunked a few years back, that the Earth was the center of the universe. We are not. Evolution is amoral. It doesn't care whether we come or go, and the only way to keep things going is to have children like ourselves. If we don't, we'll die out. I'm talking about human potential. Human potential, if you measure it in the terms that they looked at when saying we were the end product of evolution, advanced for 7,000 millennia. We kept getting smarter, better, 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 until the Industrial Revolution 2 centuries ago, and it's going downhill since then. What happened? 1,000 years ago, we had the Vikings. You know them. They came to Ukraine. They were your forefathers here in Ukraine. They were incredibly solid, and it was their altruism, their willingness to stand side by side and fight to the last man that made them such fierce warriors. That altruism is something I'll come back to. The Crusaders returned from the Holy Lands with things like inventions like windmills and Arabic numerals. Universities were founded to hold on to the knowledge that they got from the Romans and invent new knowledge. New machines were developed, such as the spinning wheel, that led to industry in Flanders and trade with England, trade all over the Baltic and the Mediterranean. We invented double entry bookkeeping. There's a guy named Fibonacci, an Italian genius. What's important about this is that his genius was employed by other people who were by using double entry bookkeeping, were able to set up subsidiaries all around the world and do the bookkeeping to make them all honest. So it's leveraging the genius of one person. That was a great invention. We had individuals recognized for their talents. Sully built the Notre Dame, Palestrina did polyphonic music, Chaucer did the novel. You could argue about who was who on those things, but things came in and the individuals were recognized. The Black Death was not a good thing, but it did bring the common man forward because his labor was valuable. The English continued, and everybody continued to develop weapons. The game changer was gunpowder. It didn't take long before Europeans had better militaries than everybody in the world. Martin Luther challenged the Catholic Church. Outcome of that was there were several faiths instead of one, basically, and although each one had its firm adherents, overall faith declined in the Enlightenment. The Portuguese invented the caravel, sailed all over the world, discovered America. Magellan went around the world. It revolutionized trade. The printing press revolutionized the spread of ideas, such as Fibonacci's idea of double entry bookkeeping, the Bible, many ideas. This is world map, and we had the Columbian Exchange. The only big thing that happened in agriculture was that we got the stuff from the Americas, tomatoes, corn, and potatoes, and they got all the stuff we had, which revolutionized diets on both sides of the water. King Henry VIII implemented the Poor Laws. 1600 or so. This was the beginning of welfare. And I'll come back to this point. They invented the telescope and the microscope to advance the biological sciences and astronomy. They first used wind, water, steam to power things. Faraday and Maxwell developed electricity, Tesla, and that was all uphill, kept on raising the demands. Remarkable progress. We pushed by modifying our own environment, and in particular, we became less violent and more social because we had to, because we lived in bigger and bigger cities. We became smarter because we had widespread literacy and numeracy, and the people who could read and write and do arithmetic had more kids, up to the Industrial Revolution. There were checks on population, plague warfare, immigration to America, starting about this time. And now we see social trends kind of going the other way. And we Europeans and North Asians are not reproducing ourselves anywhere. There are societies, such as the United States, where they are more or less reproducing themselves, but it's not through people of European descent like you and me, or through North Asians like the Chinese, Japanese, Koreans. We're going downhill. I mentioned the poor laws. So now you don't have to work. Anywhere in Europe, the United States, you can get by without working. And human nature being what it is, people do that, particularly if they don't have other things going for them. We have universities. We moved into towns. And off the farm. Off the farm means that you don't take care of your parents and the government gives you a pension. That was... We have factories. Women work. People believe in Darwin. They don't believe in God anymore. We have invented labor-saving devices such as the toaster and many others, so women have it easier. And this has enabled women to, let's go back there, let's go back there. This has enabled women to go to work. With women working, we have a demand for birth control, started 100 years ago. We have had catastrophic wars, Napoleonic Wars, First World War, Second World War, and the mass killings by the communists in Soviet Union and China. The best people have been killed. Not all. Women have gone to work. And they therefore are not home having children. They're not reproducing us. Other forms of sexuality have become trendy, even accepted. Not so much here in Ukraine, but these people are not likely to have big families. We found other things to do that are more fun than dating and having sex. Video games and drugs keep us away from forming families. Women's liberation is that we will not put up with patriarchy. Down with men. Women, rise up and do your own thing. That kind of woman is not going to be raising a family. We have invited in immigrants because we are not fertile enough to reproduce ourselves, and the theory was that we bring in immigrants, as they have done in Western Europe, who will take the place of the children that we're not having, that we Europeans are not having. I lived in Germany 40 years ago. The Turkish guest workers were there. It didn't work 40 years ago. It's not working now. In fact, if you look at European politics, there's a huge revolt. There's an election coming up in Sweden. It doesn't work, but people remain committed to it. So where does this lead us? We're not having kids. Our altruism is suicidal. This great Viking spirit of one for all for one, protect each other, has led them to accept people who are not like them, cannot work like them, and do not respect them. And that's, you might notice Sweden is burning. That's a problem, misplaced altruism. Danish researcher Helmut Nyberg projects that the IQ of Denmark will decline by 6 points in 50 years. That's several millennia worth of progress going backwards, simply because the smart Danes aren't having kids, the dumb ones are, and the immigrants aren't as smart as the Danes. So blame evolution, operating through human nature. We take the easy way out. We don't have kids. I would bet that people in this room are not going to have as many kids as there are people in the room. That would just be a guess. There is no political solution to this problem because people vote their self-interest, and it's the poor people who dominate in democracies, the poorer people, and they say, give me more free stuff from the government. That free stuff is flowing. Actually, they are robbing your generation to pay my pension. You cannot afford my pension. I thank you for it anyhow. But you cannot afford it, and there will not be pensions for you when you get there. Now, does this matter to you? Because if you don't have kids, who cares? European North, our population is going down. Reproduction used to be a matter of instinct. Animals do it instinctively, cats and dogs. Tribal people do it instinctively. We don't. It's your choice. Now, here's an aside. If you don't have kids, then you have no stake in the future. And please shut up about global warming. That's just an aside. But the desire for children is beyond the realm of logic. I can't tell you you should have children. I can just say that if you don't, your civilization, which you may like, is going to disappear. It's a personal decision. My plan involves this guy. Keep him in a homogeneous country and neighborhood, which we found here. People tell me all the time how imperfect Ukraine is. It's just the best there is. Educate them myself, and Eddie is at a private school where we have some control over it. Raise him with the expectation that he will have a family. My grown children did not have this expectation. They do not have families. Don't apologize for who you are. In America and Western Europe, white people are apologizing everywhere for the sins of white people. Don't do it. Be proud of who you are. Be self-reliant. Don't depend on government for anything. Governments are overextended, overtaxed, they're overtaxing, they're going to collapse. Now, here's a point in our favor. The anti-fertility message, all of these things with working women, the gay rights and all that, actually favors those of us who have kids because there's not much competition for our kids. The world will want kids who can do things by the time this guy grows up. However, you have to watch the politicians because they are robbing our kids' future to pay for us today. And that's a danger, so we have to watch out for that. The childless leaders, like everywhere in Western Europe, have no stake in the future, and they make decisions that are based on the present, no regard to the future. We need to build community, remake our families. And this is a great thing about Ukraine, you still believe in families. Babushkas are a big deal here. Grandmothers are no big deal where I came from. You have continuity, and those people expect you to have kids. Grandparents in the Americas generally don't care about grandchildren that much. Circumvent media and mind control. This is Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of these. I have this on Facebook, on YouTube. I think that they're going to shut it down probably. They don't like this kind of message. You need to avoid this kind of message. Prepare your children to marry people who are like themselves, who are like you, who will give you grandchildren. But if you don't prepare your kids, it's probably not going to happen. There's a coming population bottleneck, just like after the Black Plague, because there are so few kids like us being born that those that we are having are going to be a founder generation for a repopulation of the earth. Now, I want my kids to be part of that founder generation. I want my genome to go on. The question I asked you to ask yourselves.
Students change their schools, and as you might know, at 7 to 16 years old, pupils usually don't take decisions by themselves, and quite often the decision is made by parents. But in my case it was a little bit 50-50, because I started in a regular school, like absolutely ordinary school. We have a lot of them. But afterwards I had to switch my education and be focused on a sport. So I switched to a sports school. The sports school also have different types. One just devoted to, how to say, when pupils just spend more time on the sport than regular school. And the other type of school is a professional schools. So at some point my trainer decided that it was for me to switch from just sport to a professional sport. So I went to a professional school of sport. And that was second or so. However, professional sport requires good health, and especially good health when the children are growing. So if you have a lot of trainings, like 6-7 hours a day, your body sometimes cannot cope with this loads, okay, physical loads. And at the same time, your body has to grow muscles, bones, etc. And if body cannot cope, the children has problems with their health, and first of all with health. And it was exactly my case. So I had to change my focus from professional sport to mathematics. And after that, actually the whole my life was connected to math. And now I spend a lot of time on calculation, modeling, predictive analytics, etc. So the last change of school defined my future professional path. So that's it.
I had to change school twice. Up until I was 15 or 16, I was very bad at every single class. I did not like school, I find it boring, until my mom found me a private teacher for mathematics. And that changed everything. I went from the guy who had 4 out of 20 to the guy that easily had 20 out of 20 for every math exam. After that, my parents decided, hey, we should send you to a more prestigious and stronger school, and the French school. That was the entire idea, so that I could study later on in French university. And I had a lot of trouble getting in. I had to pass the test 3 times, because just the formalities of how you give the answer defines if the answer is correct or not, even if the result is correct. So I get into this school after so much tribulations. It was expensive, my parents were so expectative of me, and of course I did not change anything. I was very good in math, and I was very, very bad in everything else. So essentially I had a 3 and 4 in every class. I remember perfectly the first semester meeting recounted by my mathematics professor. He was surprised the next day. He said, I arrived at the meeting, said, yeah, Mehdi, excellent, of course. No, no one was agreeing, not the French teacher, not the history teacher, no one, except the math teacher was happy about me. So I spent 2 years there, and at the end of 1 year, waiting for the results outside, I was expecting to fail the year, of course. I had horrible scores, but what I did not expect is that when they came up, they decided that I would fail my year, but I was not allowed to fail it in the same school. So essentially they were throwing me out. And I had to go to another school that was for the rejects of that school, and that's where I ended up having my diploma, a much, much easier life, because I was obviously not comfortable with that level of expected excellence in the other school, and everything ended up pretty well, I would say. Thank you.
Just to read for high school students, what it would be?
How to read a book. That would be the title of the book that I would make a mandatory reading in high school. Because we take it for granted. We think reading is so easy. You put letters together, see the word, put words together, see a sentence, get the idea, continue. Like that. But it turns out that when we read, we don't actually often get information. I noticed it with my reading. Because a few weeks ago I realized that I was reading a book and it was going fine, I was getting pleasure, I enjoyed it. Then I finished it, put it aside, think about it, and there was this blank page in my head. I couldn't recount the content of the book, not talking about the intricacies and the details and the ideas that I was reading it for. And it created a problem for me. Why is that? Everybody's bragging about reading books, this challenge, 52 books a year, but what use is it if you can't actually elaborate on what you've read and you can't analyze it? So then I stumbled upon this book, How to Read Books, and it opened my eyes at reading. It's not as trivial as you think. Reading requires a lot of thinking, surprisingly, because we are used to thinking that it's a passive process. You just sit in a chair, chilling, nobody's bothering you, just take it in. But in fact, book is a conversation with you and author, and you have to try to understand it, agree or disagree, add your own thoughts. And that's not as easy as it sounds. In fact, now, to me, reading is kind of a challenge. I mean, it's a fun challenge, but it still is. I have to use a lot of energy to do that. And that's, I think, one of the most fundamental skills that will give incredible returns if you master it. And the sooner you do this, the better. That's why high school students should learn to read properly.
Too soon old, too late smart. It took me a long time to figure out how to read. But this was my solution. I started reviewing books on Amazon 15 or more years ago. And the reason I did it was because I wanted to write down, after I finished the book, I wanted to write down what I had read so I wouldn't forget it. Exactly the problem that Vasil pointed out. So I started doing this in a systematic way, and after I moved to Ukraine, I became more systematic, and I became a top 500 Amazon reviewer, mainly because I wanted to remember what I read. So I'd say that this is a good discipline two ways. First of all, it forces you to remember what you read, and second, it's practice writing, and an ancillary benefit, you make some mind-blowing contacts. Because when people read your reviews and comment positively or look you up on the internet and send you an email, it's a wonderful experience. Thank you.
And my today's situation, let's say it's a good example of these challenges. But the second point, how to get out of this challenge, right? How to meet this challenge and go ahead showing that you are capable to work through it and go through. There are several techniques I want to share with you. One technique is called the technique of Лёня Черновецкий. Лёня Черновецкий technique means that I am 100% right, and if somebody thinks I'm not right, that's his problem or her problem. So, this, if you remember, he was a mayor of Kiev, of the city of Kiev, and he was like a very good indication of this principle. Whenever he went, he behaved like this. I am right, I am best, I am energetic, I'm 100%. And if you think I'm not, that's your problem. Another idea that anyway challenge, timing is a big challenge all over, and just to follow timing, you need to set up a good example and find out where is the best, who are the people who have this experience to be always in time. And in this case, you can choose an example of another technique which is called the Anya's technique. The technique of Anya. So if you want to be in time, you think of it all the time and you take your time to get ahead, and just to prepare yourself and be in time. So and after some time it will come to your, to your habit. You will not think about it anymore. And this is it. That is it what I want to share with you for today.
I had in my 10th grade an opportunity to go as an exchange student to States. So as any kid in 2015, they were all, no, 2013, they were all like thinking of States as, like you picture Los Angeles, New York, this big apple city. You want to go there, you want to be like modern, and like once you get there, you know that you're going to be like at the edge of everything. You will be always trendy, you will be able to connect with everybody. And so this was the case for me. This was partially with my expectations. At the time I didn't know English well, so one of the goals were to actually learn to speak English. And the program was called An Ocean, Organization of Cultural Exchange Among Nations. There is another one which is called Flex, but for some reason we decided to go with this one because it's cheap compared to Flex. And so I will tell you the story because this one was the best decision made in our life to go with the cheapest option. So any exchange student, they meet at one point in the States all together to get to know all the rules of living with parents. You actually get this host family. So we had this amazing time in Arizona. We've seen this safari, like this desert and nice weather. Everybody is young, energetic. And then turns out that you are being sent from this location, from Arizona, to different ones among states. So I was sent neither to the north, to the New York, neither to LA or Cali. I was going all the way to the southeast, which is South Carolina. And so during this preparation time, I was very confident about my English. The speaker was pretty straight at saying everything, single word. So I gained my confidence. But once I arrived there, they started calling me, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "What did you say?" "Hey, y'all, are you in Andrea? And how's your flight?" And all this stuff. I'm like, "Excuse me?" And this is when I realized that there is actually a big difference between North America and South America, and there's two different accents. So my staying was pretty fun. I would actually give a separate talk, more extended one on this. Overall, I had to leave the country earlier as I couldn't find very many interesting people in this particular place, but I was in Myrtle Beach, which is pretty big for all these business people coming in and having good times at the clubs. Thank you so much for your time.
And we're about 10 or 11 years old. What was what was the quality or skill you tried to work on to develop during your school years? What did you think would make you a successful adult, and what did you work on? Maybe it was you wanted to be to gain popularity in your class, or you tried to be as smart as possible, or maybe you saw something different. Any memories? No? Okay.
Pick someone.
Pick someone.
Choose your volunteer.
Just pick someone.
Oh.
Newcomers, for example. For example, a newcomer.
Newcomer.
Hey, I'll try it. So, my name is Glenn, and at 11 and 12 years old, I thought nothing, zero, about what I'm going to be when I'm an adult. That actually never even started to occur to me until I was about 16. When I was 11 and 12 years old, I cared about my friends, my girls, girls in general. I wanted some, but, and what all of my friends were doing. They were drinking a fair bit of beer at that age. They were starting to smoke pot and such, right? I didn't like either one of those. So I was thinking, some of the things that are going on around me, I'm not interested in. How do I get myself into a position where I can do interesting things, like sports and reading and a few other things like that? And it turns out what I ended up doing was doing a lot of skateboarding, and I did a lot of going to museums, interestingly enough, because there was a fair number in our town, and I really loved them. So I wanted to do things that I was interested in at that moment. Not later, not what some of my friends were doing. I wanted to do only what I wanted to do. I think for something was happening to me at that time. I guess I was waking up, right? I guess puberty and hormones and all that stuff. I'm starting not to become a child anymore. So I'm really, my head and my emotions and my body is waking up. And I was thinking, what's going on around me? There's so many things happening and so many changes. I was trying to deal with what was happening with me at 11 and 12, not when I was 20 and 30 as an adult.
Meeting and not less mind-blowing following of it. I really enjoyed today. I really missed you guys. I haven't been here for a while. And I'm glad to evaluate a remarkable speech of Timur. Unfortunately, there were some dedicated project that Timur picked up, but it was clear, the goal of the speech was quite clear. It was a training, it was like a workshop style, and Timur did a great job of involving the entire audience. Every person that was in the room when Timur was holding the training was involved. There were 3 parts, as we all seen. Clear structure. You you open up the speech of telling what is the purpose of it and what we're about to do. Then we had 3 rounds of exercises, which were really nice, and all the participants did a great job. It was really professional and nice. Miroslava might have already known about that exercise, not that for this speech, but she was familiar with the format, and so she quite nicely collaborated with Timur. Then Alex followed, which was also nice, with Evgenia. Nice duet. And in the end, everybody could participate. That's very well. I like that a lot. And in the conclusion, you mentioned once again, let's practice that because it could help you. Maybe a bit more extension, why and what benefits you get from that, except for just creativity influence, but maybe what's for, maybe it's obvious, but still your conclusion could have been a bit more wide, in my opinion, but it's a small remark. What I noticed and what I might find good to recommend to you, if you allow me, is you mentioned, and now let's do the first exercise, which is throw in the words. And you mentioned that it's a first exercise, but that was the only exercise that we did. We did it in 3 different variations, but only that one. And I was really expecting for second exercise, which would be different. But then in the end of the speech, I understood that it's the only one. It's not a big issue, but it's like expectation management for your audience. And you also admitted that you didn't prepare that speech very well in the beginning, although your speech was very fluent and very nicely delivered. Nobody would have guessed that, but you were very honest. And the question is why you do it. Is it for making your audience feel something? Is it on purpose? Because if it's not on purpose, maybe you just hide it and not tell it in the beginning of your speech, because it forms some thoughts in it. Okay, you were not preparing. Okay, go ahead. But once again, your speech was very nice. I liked it. I think it was useful content for everybody. It's a nice exercise. We could practice it, could increase our creativity. I enjoyed collaboration with Miroslava in the 3rd round. It was great. So thank you. Looking forward for your next speech.
They opened up a new Louvre in Abu Dhabi. It is spectacular architecture. You can go just for the architecture. And it actually is associated with the Louvre in Paris. Not that the Louvre in Paris actually did it, but they were working with the Louvre in Paris to actually build this place. I think an art experience that would be mind-blowing would be to go to Abu Dhabi if you get a chance to see the new Louvre.
ArtTalkers and guests. Today I have a big honor to evaluate the speech of Graham. And what I want to say, very important, big P, preparation. When I reached Graham before the meeting and asked him what is the project about and all details, he said to me that he sent to me the evaluation note of my mail, but I have not seen, of course. And then he described me all the details of this project. This must be video presentation and then comments. But, of course, we have some technical problems, and as I understand, some sound doesn't work. So, Graham had extra plan. Many people would say, okay, something doesn't work, so I cancel my speech. But not Graham. And he delivered an excellent speech. He has a presentation. Presentation was excellent prepared. I'm sure that everyone noticed how Graham was familiar with it, and every picture appeared at the needed moment. And that was very nice, and I was very, it was mind-blowing for me how it just can be so cool preparation. One thing I just probably can suggest to you, we all understood your main idea about making and raising children, but probably facts that were in background, you gave us a lot of them, and probably some of them just missed because it was very fast and just a lot of them. So probably you just can somehow maintain this balance with facts and remembering them of people, and this just and more of the information will remain in our minds after your speech, not just the main idea. And everything else was very nice, thank you. I'm very glad to hear you.